Hold on. All right, we are back. My name is Andrew Kulha with PackersRoundtable. Anthony Moeglin is with me as always. Our Packers transplant, I guess we'll call him.
Yeah, we'll take that.
Yeah, you're an honorary member of the Green and Gold.
Hey, finally, right? I'm a part of Titletown. Do I get all of the perks of being a member of the of Packers Nation?
You get all of the perks. Unfortunately, you didn't get to enjoy any of the championships.
Yeah, no, I'm bad luck in terms of championships. So yeah, you don't want me for that.
Yeah. Well, we're here to talk about Week 6, which is wrapping up as we do this. But for the Packers, it wrapped up with a win over the Cincinnati Bengals this past weekend. So let's start there, and we'll kind of work our way through a couple things. Anthony, I'd like to hear kind of what your initial thoughts were on that win. A win's a win in the NFL. 27-18 was the score, so it was a 2-score game. It felt kind of disjointed at times, though.
I'm spinning it back to you. At what point were you like, oh, no, Joe Flacco's going to do it again?
Probably when he hit Jamar Chase for that touchdown, which was just a beautiful catch by Jamar Chase.
And it came after that, like our corner made the play on the play before and did the gritty thing. And the very next play was like, like they're still alive. And it felt like because of those two things that like, this is not only are they alive, but some weird stuff's about to happen. And the Bengals are going to be like very live in this one.
It felt like there was some Flacco magic in the air.
Well, and they went for 2. So it was like, all right, if they get it again, they're winning this football game. Do you subscribe to and obviously this is we can be a prisoner of the moment here, but do you subscribe to you're down 14 in the fourth quarter, you go for 2 on the first time?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. I think you don't want to chase points until you absolutely have to. That's always kind of been my methodology when it comes to thinking about the game of football. So get that 7, because if you miss the 2-point, you're even further behind than what you were.
Yeah, I guess the theory is that if a 2-point try is a 50-50 play, right, and you're doing it twice, according to the numbers, according to the analytics, you'll get one of those 2. So it's like, all right, you get it on the first one, then you're kicking that extra point to win it. You don't get it, you got to go for 2 again to just tie it. I don't know, man. It's I definitely when I coached high school football, we subscribed to that. So it was, hey, if we're down 14 in the fourth, we're going for 2 on the first one. Never had to do it, but man, that is a gutsy decision. And when it works out like it did for the Bengals yesterday, it honestly does, dude. It puts a ton of pressure on the opposing offense to execute on their final drives, whatever the situation is. For the Packers yesterday, it was, hey, got to get a couple first downs, and they ended up getting that big play to Golden up the sidelines to kind of seal the deal.
Yeah. So ultimately, and we're talking about a play in the third quarter. It was, let's see, go back here. It was a touchdown pass, a 2-point conversion. It brought the game to way too close for my liking against the Bengals. It was at that point 10-7, Packers leading by 3. The very next drive goes into the fourth quarter, actually. Ended up as a 9-play, 66-yard drive, 4:50 off the clock. The Packers pay that off with a touchdown of their own, a really nice Josh Jacobs run, and we'll get to Josh Jacobs here in a little bit. The thing that really stood out to me in that second half, man, I don't know if you realize this, but that the Bengals got the kickoff in the second half, and their very first drive was that touchdown drive. 17 plays, 78 yards. They took 10 minutes and 14 seconds off the clock. They had the ball basically for the entire quarter. Let's start with this. What are your, I think we've talked about this a couple times, that we've thought that Green Bay has the pieces for an elite defense. And I think you can say, if you look at that roster, if they're healthy, that they should have at least a star at every position, every kind of grouping of the defense
level. Yeah.
You've got Micah Parsons, Edgerrin Cooper's a pretty darn good player, Xavier McKinney in the secondary. Now, I'm going to ask you this, and I want you to be completely honest with me.
Mm-hmm.
Can you call yourself an elite defense if you allow Joe Flacco at 40 years old to run a 17-play, 10-minute drive on you?
Flacco's elite, man. Like, yeah, like that. No, I do think. Okay, so there's two sides of that coin, because the one part about the Flacco thing is that he's been there, he's done that, and he does not, like, in my now 10 games of watching him play, regardless of if he's thrown for 3 touchdowns and 400 yards, or if he's thrown for 10 yards, 3 interceptions, and has a 10% completion percentage, he stays like this the whole time. Like, he doesn't get up, doesn't get down. And that's the one thing with an older quarterback, a veteran quarterback like that, who, hey, they dominate him in the first half. Like, I was kind of stat watching a little bit, like just kind of like box scoring as I had it on the TV, and it was flipping through different games, and I was like, oh my gosh, like Flacco does, like, okay, from my perspective, good trade Browns, like, way to get him out. Like, hey, you got to pick for him, like, whatever. And then you just start to see him chip away and chip away and chip away and chip away. And then, that one long drive, that's a thing. That is a veteran quarterback drive where it's like, okay, there's just play after play is the right play, right? You mix a couple penalties in there. He's not turning the ball over. They're starting to run it a little bit. And like, okay, then you just like chip away at it. And then all of a sudden you look up and, like you said, it's been 8 minutes, 9 minutes, 10 minutes. And you're like, oh my gosh. And you've been on the field for forever. So I wouldn't say that one drive takes you away from being an elite defense. If they do lose that game, and they give up one more touchdown, and it would have made it 25 to, it ultimately would have been 25-24. Then we're having questions. But that one long drive isn't indicative of what this defense is as a whole. And truth be told, the Bengals have pieces, right? You talk about T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, and then Chase Brown as well. Their offensive line does stink, but you can kind of mitigate that with a quarterback who's going to get the ball out quick and get it at least in the right decision or right direction. We kind of saw the effects of that when Flacco kind of got rolling in that second half. Andrew, you are muted, unfortunately, so we're gonna have to.
Yep. Here we go. Okay. So Flacco finished with 29 completions out of 45 attempts, 219 yards, 2 touchdowns, averaged less than 5 yards a throw, 4.9 yards per throw. Very Flacco-esque in 2025 at least. But you mentioned it, man. I think that, and I saw a sentiment kind of floating around Packers Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, that they won, but they didn't win by enough, kind of. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, but this is, as long as I've been watching the NFL and doing this professionally, I don't think the average fan understands how hard it is to win in the NFL. And the fact that you walk away with a 2-score win, 9 points, that's a big deal, because like you said, it is as bad as the Bengals' record has been this season. You've got Jamar Chase, arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL. T. Higgins is a darn good wide receiver. Noah Fant's a pretty good tight end. Chase Brown's a good receiver or running back. Samaje Perine, he's a good running back. They've got people all over the board. They just haven't been able to put together, because likely they're playing Joe Flacco. If Burrow was there, it'd be a completely different story.
Well, that's also part of it. Is like, this team has aspirations, or had aspirations, to be a Super Bowl contender, and you got to think of it like this too. Like, they went out and got Flacco because they want to bring Joe Burrow back in December with a chance to go to the playoffs. Yep. You don't know, and hopefully one day it comes out. I want to know the list of teams they called. Like, I hope they called New York to try to get Jameis, and I hope that they called all these different teams to try to get some of these good backups, and they ended up making a deal with the Browns, which you rarely see that in division. Mike Tomlin talked about it a little bit today. He definitely disagrees with what the Browns did to deal him to Cincinnati, because nobody wants the Bengals to be hanging around. around. And because when they're hanging around, come the end of the season, they're going to be a contender. And you got to remember that. Like, this is a good football team this is a great football team when they have Joe Burrow. This is still can be a solid football team when they don't. I think that you're right. Like, NFL games are decided on the margins. And, the fact that, Green Bay had to put together a drive. Jordan Love had to put together a drive because, the Bengals had all the momentum. Like we said, they score another touchdown, they win the football game. And had the Packers not put together a final drive, we're having a different conversation right now potentially. But instead, they grew up, they made good decisions. Jordan Love made big plays, and they kick a field goal and they win by 9 points. And you're like, okay, yeah, that was a good growth moment in a game where, hey, they were up early, probably felt like they could have pulled away, they didn't. That's the NFL. And then at the end of the game, when they need to make a play, they did. And I think that part, Packers fans can hang their hats on.
Yep, absolutely. I agree with you. So the question to me then is, are Packers fans spoiled? Because there's a whole unit out there just saying, well, we won, but we didn't win by enough,
Yeah. You want my perspective on this one for sure. Heck yeah. Packers fans are spoiled. We're not going to – I'll stop. This is my last Browns comment I'll make.
Sure.
Be a Browns fan for 5 weeks. Well, I'll give me 1 month, and then you'll be thanking your lucky stars that you beat the Bengals by 9. Like, you'll be like, "Holy cow, this is the best win of all time!" Like,
we're riding high. Yeah, definitely a spoiled bunch. Is the team perfect? No. I still think though that there's Super Bowl talent on both the offense and on the defense. I think. And I don't want to bash my own people, right? But you got to see the forest between the trees. This is you need to pick up these wins in the regular season to make the playoffs. But really, this is all just preparation for the playoffs. Playoffs is when it really matters and when you really want to be playing your best football, and you just kind of build to that point.
And let's tell the truth about the last month of Packers football, right? Like, this is all of these things. After the Browns game, we talked about, hey, they're going to take some of these lessons learned and they're going to use it going forward. After the Cowboys game, you're going to take some of those lessons learned and use them going forward. Guess what you did? You took those lessons from the past, you learned from them, and you won a football game. Like, how much worse would this have been if, instead of a 9-point win, it's a 1-point loss, or it's a tie again, or you lose. Yeah, like I said, it's a 1-point loss to a team that you should have beat, and instead you get the win. It's never going to be perfect, but it is a step in the right direction, no doubt, and it's something that that I think that they can start to build on, because it's never easy in the NFL, and you'll take all of your lessons learned, because when it's the divisional round and it's January and it's snowing in Lambeau and you have to go on a game-winning drive, Jordan Love's going to be able to fall back on, that ball I hit to Matthew Golden late in that game in October. I can fall back on that experience and make the game-winning plays when they matter the most.
Yep. Ultimately, there's 12 more games left on schedule to prepare for a playoff run. You really got to take care of your divisional opponents. That's really number one in my book. And the Packers are going to have plenty of opportunity to do that. Let's talk about Jordan Love a little bit. You just mentioned him. I thought he had a wonderful game outside of a play where he just should have thrown the ball away on third down. We've talked about this now a couple weeks in a row. I'd love to hear your thoughts, Mr. Quarterback. What the heck is he doing tossing that ball there on the sideline?
It's so funny, because when I was watching it, I was thinking of you, and I was thinking, he makes, and this was right before the play happened. I go, Andrew always says he makes plays where you're like, oh, this is the best quarterback in football. Yeah. And then he makes plays with that you're like, dude, how are you on a roster? Yeah. And that was one of those where it's like, you've been in the league enough. Like, if a rookie did that, fine. Okay. Yeah. Hey, dude, go out of the pocket, your pressure, throw that thing into the 10th row, and never, ever, ever do this again, because this was bad, and never do it again. And you're like sitting there, he's floating. You're like, throw it away. Guys are getting closer. And then he like pulls the trigger. And you're like, there better be a dude. It was one of those, Andrew, where he like threw it and you're like waiting for the camera to pan, and you're like, there better be a green jersey with nothing around it. And instead it was like all white jerseys. And you're like, what the heck is going on? And it just tips up in the air, tip, and interception. And like, that's one of those plays. And I think the comment the broadcaster made was like, all right, it was his second interception of the year. You're like, yeah, the first one cost the Packers a game, and you're hoping that this one wasn't going to cost them. It was obviously early enough in the game, but they were in scoring position, and like that's just a play you just simply cannot have. And it's like, dude, you got to stop having these because they'll show up at a really, really bad time for this offense.
Yep. He ultimately finished with 19 completions, 26 attempts, 259 yards, averaged 10 yards a throw. The one thing that I've liked, what I've seen from him over the past couple games, is he's clearly healthy, very athletic quarterback. He rushed 7 times for 26 yards, really moved the sticks a few times for the Packers. I guess my question is, if we're looking at a quarterback who has that top 5 potential, is this a coaching thing? Is this something that Matt LaFleur can get out of him, or is this just who he is?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's no one better to kind of to speak to on it than, you know, Packers fans. Like it's not quite as aggressive as what Brett Favre had, where he just would chuck it everywhere. But you know, it's becoming a thing where it's like kind of part of his personality. It's like part of his makeup, where it's like, all right, you'll take the incredible throws and the throws where he drifts in the pocket and buys time and rips a perfect ball over the middle of the field. And unfortunately, it's starting to just become the thing where, hey, he's gonna have a dud at some point in the game, and you just hope it doesn't. You hope it doesn't cost you. You can coach it all you want. You can. I don't know if they even make him run sprints in the NFL, but you can try to coach it out of him all you want. But at some point, you know, you're gonna have to look at it and be like, all right, this is just kind of what he is, and just hope and pray that it doesn't cost your team a win.
What the only solace I find in it as a fan is that he's trying to make the play, right? Now he's making the wrong play, and that's a problem because he's been around this league for a while, but he is trying to make a play, and that's where you can draw the connection to Brett Favre, who he was just always trying to make plays, man. Now the thing is, and I've said this before, but it's worth repeating, with Favre, he was trying to make a play, and it was the right play. It just sometimes, you know, it was triple covered. So maybe you could argue it wasn't the right play.
Well, I wasn't going to put you on blast there, but yeah, maybe we could.
So I guess Love really is Favrean in that sense, and that he's going out there trying to make a play. But at the end of the day, you have to take that physical talent that you have and connect it to the mental aspect of the game of knowing situations. And you've talked about this before. Situations are so important for a quarterback.
Yeah, situations are everything in the NFL. Like if you were to go to a practice, you would watch the team run a couple like back and forth plays, and then they'll put up with some kind of a situation. Hey, it's end of half. Hey, it's end of game. 2 minutes, 30 seconds left. Hey, you know, we have to get into field goal range. Or hey, offense, you're already in field goal range, right? We're in the middle of the second quarter. Like, let's make sure that we get points here. And so they practice that type of stuff always, because that's what it comes down to, right? At some point, you know, in a football season, you know, you know how to run plays, you know how to make your combo blocks, you know what calls you have to make, quarterbacks, you know your footwork and all that stuff. Now let's practice putting yourself in a game situation. They had points in the bag. And he gave them away, right? You at least were kicking a field goal, and at best, you're scoring a touchdown. Just take the points. Sometimes incompletions are okay. You know, sometimes that's the right play to make, like you said, and you got to learn from it. Now, I think that it's critical. Like his bad plays are bad, sure, and this one was a bad one, but he's only got 2 picks on the year, right? And you're going to take that. And, you know, if you spread that out over, you know, in a 17-game schedule, he's on pace for 6 interceptions this year, which if you get that, hell yeah, you sign me up. Where do I sign? And can I sign twice? Because that's exactly what you're looking for. So you take the good with the bad, and hope that as the year progresses, that he ditches some of that dumb mistake.
And you might not have seen it, but in the end of the Aaron Rodgers era with the Packers, he almost went to the opposite of what Love would do. Is he would always make the safe play, and it got to a point where he was actually hurting the team, if you could believe that, Aaron Rodgers, you know, because he was playing too conservative. So there's a balance that you have to strike between making the right read, the safe read, and going out and making a play, because ultimately – in the NFL, you get paid to make those big plays.
Yeah. And I think you said it right, too. Like, if you can live with it, hey, I'm trying to push the ball down the field and, you know, defender makes a good play. The one on Sunday is one where you're like, can't have it. The one a couple weeks ago against Cleveland, can't have that. And those are the ones you try to grow from.
So let's flip sides of the ball here. I want to talk quickly about the Packers defense. Again, ultimately, you give up 18 points. That's a good day at the ballpark, in my opinion. You kind of extrapolate what that game looked like. They went into halftime with a shutout, so this is a defense that has what it takes to really be an elite unit. The one thing that really drove me crazy throughout the course of the game is you've got Micah Parsons, you've got Edgerrin Cooper, Quay Walker, Rashawn Gary, just really elite athletes when it comes to their ability to run, rush the passer, get out in open space and make plays. The Packers finished with just 1 sack on the game. My big takeaway is that we saw it now twice with Flacco, and I think we saw it with Dak Prescott a couple weeks ago. Clearly, the offensive game plan when you've got the Packers on the other side of you is quick game, and make sure that you're getting the ball out fast. Is there a way that Jeff Hafley can combat that, or is this just kind of what it's going to look like?
Yeah, it's a really good point. And there are some ways. So like when you're facing that, and this is the challenging part. This is the chess match because all right, to get the ball out quick, receivers have to run short routes. Okay, and to do if you really want to take those away, then you can tell your DBs, hey, let's get aggressive, right? Go ahead and jump one. Where that becomes a problem is that the one time you go to jump Jamar Chase and he spins out of it and goes hitch and go on you, and they have Max Pro up, so it doesn't even matter that they're thinking about getting the ball out quick. They got Micah double teamed, and they got Rashawn Gary double teamed, and you're like, all right, they're protected up. They just need an extra split second, and we're to the crib. So I would say this, like the lack of sacks do come into play. Okay, you want guys to get sacks, but the trade-off is, all right, if you're gonna force the other team to get the ball out quickly, guess what they're gonna have to do to score? They're gonna have to go on a 17-play drive to score. Do you know how hard that is to go? Like, it obviously happened. Do you know how hard that is to do a 17-play drive where there's not a holding penalty that backs you up and there's not a interception or 2 straight incompletions or whatever? Like, you force the offense to play perfect football, and sometimes, guess what? Sometimes pros do that, but the trade-off to that one was it took them 10 minutes, right? So it's like, hey, as you're trying to chase, sometimes that pass rush, while it doesn't equate to sacks, there is a positive takeaway from it because you're making the offense change their game plan, which can oftentimes, right, I guess, make it more challenging to score, which can be a payoff in the long run.
I think it's a payoff if you can play complementary football, meaning you've got to get ahead, at least by a touchdown, if not 10 points, and then you can start playing those games. But what worried me in this game is the Bengals made it a pretty close game, and there was not a ton of counterpunch from the Packers defense. Now, obviously, they end up winning. They end up getting a stop when they needed to. It's just, I think it's probably going to be a learning experience for Packers fans as we go through. Like, you watch Micah Parsons, and the guy gets double and triple teamed on every single play. And I've not personally watched in depth a player who deals with so much protection, right?
Yeah.
But what that means is that if you're a Rashawn Gary, a Lucas Van Ness, somebody else, you've got to. If Parsons is going to be the guy taking the blockers, the guys around him need to step up and get after the quarterback.
It's an absolute must, Andrew, because that just totally opens up the rest of the defensive line, because you're getting single blocked every time, and you have to win, because the moment you start winning, the moment that LVN starts winning on the other side, or Rashawn Gary starts winning, guess what? They have to take away from Micah, and then when you take away help from Micah, boom, that's a win. Or, Andrew, the other alternative is that, all right, you're giving 2 guys to Micah, right? I have to bring a tight end or a running back in to account for somebody else to double team them. Now you're only facing 3 routes, okay? And that is the stuff where it's like, hey, having one elite pass rusher is awesome, but it can be stopped if you don't have any other at least solid pass rushers that can, like, that offense coordinator goes, hey, we don't even have to worry about those guys. Let's just focus on number 1, take them out of the game, and we're good. When you have somebody else that they can go to, that really changes things.
Right. Yeah, offensive coordinators in the NFL. Now, if we're talking high school, college, you could have a stud pass rusher who just wrecks games no matter what. But offensive coordinators know how to work around at least one player, So you gotta give them a couple people to worry about. I 100% agree with you. Let's flip back to the offense because we've gone a long time into this podcast and we haven't talked about Josh Jacobs, and I think. He had just a tremendous game for the Packers. 18 carries, 93 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. The thing that I've really enjoyed about him this season is he's also getting really involved in the passing game. So he had 5 receptions, 57 yards. So that's 11.4 yards per reception from your running back, which, you're going to take that every day and twice on Sundays. I'd love to hear what you think about Josh Jacobs so far with the added – bonus. I don't know if you know this, but he was puking, I guess, before and after the game. The guy was sick.
Dude, it's unbelievable. 23 touches for 150 yards from your running back. Like that's what you sign up for when you get an elite guy like that. And it can change the game. That when you have a guy who gets hot rushing the football, like that is how you that's how you win football games. And that's 4 out of 5 games this year. He's had that type of game and that type of impact. And he scored. This is his second game scoring multiple touchdowns. He did it last week against Dallas. The only game he didn't score a touchdown was against Cleveland, and that game didn't go all that well for him. And like the direct correlation was they struggled to score. They only scored 10 points. Like when he scores, a touchdown, they're scoring over 27 points a game. Now that's 3 times now where if he scores, they're scoring at least 27. And last week they obviously scored 40. So it's like, hey, when you get him going, a direct correlation to success in this offense is getting number 8 going. And when you can do that, you're in business.
The one thing that I've kind of felt about Jacobs this season is he's just, I would call him a stabilizer. He's a stabilizing force for this offense, especially when you're dealing with some volatility with Love, right? We've talked about it ad nauseum. He's a volatile player, meaning he can make these incredible plays, but then also those plays you're like, oh, what the hell's going on? You've got, at least in the Packers case, the early season here, you've got receivers going in and out with injury and whatnot. At least with Jacobs, just give him a little bit of room, and he's running ahead for 3-4 yards a carry. And then you throw in that additional aspect of being able to catch passes, make people miss out of the backfield, and he's just such a talented player. I just love having him on this team. I did the math here, and more specifically, I had ChatGPT do the math for me. If we extrapolate his current production and put it into a 17-game pace, he's on pace for 1,200 yards, 20 rushing touchdowns, 51 catches for 600 receiving yards. So basically, right around 2,000 yards, 20 touchdowns on pace for right now. I think he's probably got another all-pro season in him if he continues this pace.
Yeah, and I think calling him a stabilizer is like such the right way to call it that, or to kind of name it. And the big part is, this better than most, right? When the weather starts getting real bad, right, and the snow starts falling and the wind starts floating, and you start getting into the end of October here and into November. Guess who's going to show up and guess who's going to be necessary? It's Josh Jacobs in this run game. And the fact that it's paying or that it looks this good this early is a great sign for him. Now, I will say this. We talked about it last week, or maybe I was talking about it on a different show, but 98 carries is a lot through 6 games, right? And he is one of the most used guys on the Packers and in the NFL just in general. And those hits do add up. So you're like, at some point you're hoping that maybe they can pull back just a little bit of his usage before you get into that home stretch of the season where those wins are going to become so critical.
Yep, the Packers have a guy named Emmanuel Wilson, who's their number 2 right now. He only had 3 carries for 11 yards, but he's a pro. He's been around for a couple of years, 3rd season out of Fort Valley College. But he's a tough runner, so he's somebody I'd like to see get a little bit more play. Like you said, if you can get up a couple scores and let somebody else run the ball, even just for one series, that can make a very big difference. So we'll keep an eye out for Emmanuel Wilson here. And then the other guy is Chris Brooks, who he's really there for pass blocking. He's a wonderful pass blocker, but every now and then you throw a guy like that a bone and let him run a couple times. And so even, take 5 carries off of Jacobs' shoulders, and that can be a big difference as you extrapolate it over the season. So
there's no doubt.
I'm sure that's something the Packers are looking at. Let's go to our final topic here as we look ahead to next weekend. What the heck do you know about the Arizona Cardinals? Because to me, they're just like this enigma out in the desert. I don't know a ton about them.
All right, so here we go about the Cardinals. I don't know if Kyler's going to be back for next week. I'm not sure. I haven't read it. I haven't seen any updates on it, and we will get some later in the week. But what I will say is this: Jacoby Brissett, former Brown. Sorry, I told you I was going to stop doing the Brown stuff, and I did like 6 more after that. So former Brown, Jacoby Brissett came in, threw for like 350 yards last week against Indy, and they took Indy to the edge. They took them to the brink. And Indy has surprise aspirations to be a Super Bowl contending team this year, which is wild. We could do a whole podcast on that.
Yeah.
Now, what do the Cardinals do well? They don't play defense well. What they do is they can score the football. Marvin Harrison, he had some drops early in the season, and there was a lot of people questioning kind of what was going on with him, but he's totally dipped. Those are totally gone. He's been back, and he absolutely looks the part. He's a guy that they rely upon. And then Trey McBride, very similar to Tucker Kraft, what the Packers have in a tight end. Trey McBride is a monster tight end. He is in that Kittle, Kelsey, Laporta, that whole group. McBride is, if not in that group, knocking on the door kind of with Tucker Kraft there. So, you talk about having a good defensive game, which the Packers have had a half of good defensive football in the past 2 games, right? You're not going to say anything good about that Cowboys game, and you're not going to say anything good about the second half against the Bengals. So they need to be on their P's and Q's because Arizona is going to be able to score with them next week, and that's going to be critical.
I just saw an update here that if Kyler Murray is healthy, he will play. That's still a question of if, though. Jacoby Brissett is, I don't think he's in that Flacco mold of a quarterback, but he is in the Flacco mold in terms of being a backup quarterback who can win you games in the NFL.
Yeah, and more of that statuesque kind of a guy. He's not going to move much. He's going to stand back there and he's going to try to pick you apart. The Cardinals record is deceiving, right? They started the year 2-0, wins over New Orleans and Carolina, and then they drop a weird one to the 49ers. You have to go back and look at that one. That one was an odd game, and then they fall to the Seahawks, and then the Titans one was just insane. They should have beat the Titans by 35 points. That was the one where DeMercado dropped the ball going over the goal line, and they had another bad turnover, and then the Titans just chip away, and then all of a sudden they're kicking a game-winning field goal and they bury it. And then last week they get beat. So while they are 2-4, they're going to try to turn this into a track meet and make sure that Jordan Love and the offense can run with them. And you got to be ready for it.
And the thing is that their 4 losses here are all this one's by 1 point, 3 points. I mean, they're in all these games. So it's going to be a battle. I'd like to see, if I'm the Packers, I'd like to see just a consistent game on both sides of the ball. If I'm Matt LaFleur, get out there, whoever the quarterback is, let's get some pressure on him this week. And really, I would love to see the Packers lean on Josh Jacobs while he's hot. Keep running that ball, and then let's get Love out of there without a bad interception. That'd be great for me, man. I'd be really happy.
Yeah, and just keep him playing good. Yeah, keep Jordan Love playing good football and start to see that build. I love what you saw to the receivers this week. Matthew Golden, I thought was great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was awesome. And you want to see them continue to build that chemistry. And then, like you said, keep that run game rolling a little bit. And I'd like to see the defense start to really twist those screws, man, and try to narrow some stuff down.
Let's have a little bit of fun before we get out of here. Just
all about fun.
At the Cardinals, 2 Ohio State draft picks: Cody Simon, Denzel Burke. What do you think about those guys?
Yes. All right. So to be honest, I don't know how much they've been playing for the Cardinals, but what I do know about them, Cody Simon, he was he was the block O at Ohio State last year. So the block O is the player for Ohio State who wears number 0, and is like the team leader. Like that's like their guy. And last year was the first year in college football that you could wear the number 0. So he was like the first one who got to like wear the jersey.
Okay.
And he's like everything good you want in a young man and a football player. Like he's from a football perspective, he's physical, fast, strong, smart, all those things. And then from like the person side of things, he's like an A+ kind of a guy. Always just has his head on straight, and is a really good player. Denzel Burke, he plays cornerback, and he was really good for Ohio State. He was like, after his junior season, which would have been 2 years ago, he, in my opinion, was like the emotional leader of the Buckeyes. Like he was like the guy on defense who would, hey, if they needed to pick me up, he'd start running his mouth and he'd make a big play and like let everybody know about it. Awesome guy, like a really good football player. Not sure how much he's playing for the Cardinals, but back in his college days, he was good. But the Cardinals, dude, have become like Ohio State West, right? They have Marvin Harrison Jr., obviously. You talked about him on offense. Josh Fryer was a tackle for the Buckeyes last year. They signed him. Paris Johnson, plays tackle for them, which that has to go way back in time. Not way back, a couple years, like 5 years back. He was a top 10 pick for the Cardinals a couple years ago. And then on the defensive side of the ball, we talked about Burke, we talked about Cody, and there's a couple more, but they're slipping my mind right now. But regardless, a lot of Buckeyes floating around out there in Arizona.
You know, the Packers kind of have a thing for Georgia players. They like to go out and get Georgia players. And it makes sense. Go out and get those Buckeyes and those Bulldogs and the Crimson Tide players because, ultimately those are guys who understand what it takes to play big-time football.
And they understand what it takes to win, right? Those come from winning programs they don't just win on Saturdays. To win on Saturdays, you got to win on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And they know that. And then that's a culture type thing where you try to build upon.
Absolutely. Well, it's going to be exciting to see how this plays out for the Packers. I think it's going to be I wouldn't call it a toss-up game. I like the Packers in this one, but I do think the Cardinals are going to give them a handful. So we'll be back next week to talk about that and maybe a little bit about the Browns too. We'll see what goes on. And maybe there's a quarterback controversy brewing in Cleveland. I don't know.
Maybe so, and that'll be a very big topic of conversation these next couple of weeks. But one thing that, as we're recording this, just happened, the Patriots are in first place in the AFC East, which is
wow,
bonkers, man. Drake May's a dude. I love watching him play.
Drake May and their coach. Just why can't I think of his name?
Vrabel.
Mike Vrabel. Yeah, Mike Vrabel. What a guy. Well, we'll talk Patriots and Browns and everybody else next week. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks all, and I'm sure you feel the same way, Anthony. Everybody who watches us, reads, gets on Roundtable, Browns, Packers. It's a big deal to us. So if they've stuck around for 37 minutes and 30 seconds now, that's a big freaking deal. So
it's a huge deal. Follow along. Get over to Roundtable. Follow us. Go make sure you're following Andrew. He's puts out the best content you can find. And if you, like I say it every week, if you slip and find your way in Browns territory or Buckeyes territory, drop me a follow. We all would really appreciate it.
All right. Well, Anthony, appreciate your time, buddy, and we will talk to you next week.
Sir.